3. And Kai, do you want to do the salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Suzanne, can you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Bernal.
Here.
Trustee Doggett.
Here.
Trustee Levin.
Here.
Trustee Shiakari.
Here.
And Trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio program of the meetings. The recorder is located at the front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television, PCT, records and broadcasts the meetings. Approval of the minutes. Heather?
It's recommended that the board approve the minutes of August 7th, the regular meeting.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from August 7th?
I'll move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable, and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the agenda?
The superintendent would like to pull the personnel changes, please. There's been an update since we received it on Friday.
And then I wanted to pull the, what was it? The 5G, I believe, the nomination for,
Okay.
I am interested in it, but I think I need to do a little bit more research because it seems like a lot of travel and a lot of meetings.
So
That's
that's
outside
not,
of the consent.
that's not in the
Oh.
consent agenda,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
in the
Oh.
agenda, so
Oh, it's
we'll
in-
pull that.
Okay.
Perfect. So the only item we're pulling from the consent agenda is the personnel changes.
So with those, do we have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Second. And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
So moving to the personnel changes, I'm going to defer to Maria. On your dais, you have a new and improved copy, and those are available to the public. Yes. Right. Suzanne, the new ones were placed out for the public?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Suzanne? Or Maria?
So we removed one name from the list of personnel changes, mostly at the time because of we hadn't quite finished the credentialing paperwork for that person, so we didn't want to bring it to you until that was completed. And we thought it would be completed by today, but it wasn't. Subsequently, that person has decided to resign, so next meeting, we will put the resignation on for you.
Okay, so communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public.
But we have to approve this, right?
Oh,
So, are there any questions? And then, make sure I have that right. Personnel changes. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the following personnel items as presented.
do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA? CSEA?
Nothing at this time.
Nice to see CSEA here.
People wishing to address the board. I think Janelle was first.
Hi, I'm Janelle Jones. I'm a parent in the district. I'm also on the PTO at IBL. And I just wanted to mention that since the last board meeting, multiple parents have contacted me in person and by email and on Facebook regarding the back to school nights are on the same night. And it's also come to light that it's also on the same night as Terra Nova. So this is a strain that we are giving our parents of the district. For multiple reasons, families sometimes have children at up to, 3 locations. I know one family that has a child at Ortega, a child at Ocean Shore, and a child at Terra Nova. So that family's expected to go to 3 open houses in one night. And that's just a strain that is really an unnecessary strain on a family. And I think it really brings to light what we need to do, which is more conscientious calendaring throughout our district and in cooperation with the high school district. So I would just really like the board and the administration of the district to take this into consideration. Thank you.
Amy Swanson?
Hello, my name is Amy Swanson. I'm a Valmore resident, and my child goes to Valmore as well, in first grade. And I have concerns having to do with last year when there were the fires in November, and Pacifica was the very last district in the Bay Area to close their schools. And I called the district office several times throughout the day and the day before. The quality air was terrible. As a firefighter in San Francisco, I'm pretty familiar with that. And the district office kept telling me, oh, well, we're trying to work with the working families. We don't want to leave them stranded. And the superintendent, I believe this was your call, I'm not really sure, I'm pretty sure it was, but they waited until 11 p.m. to put out an email to close the school for the very next day. And I ended up hosting 5 children at my house because everyone was scrambling. So I'm just curious if there is a plan that's better in place for when there is that kind of situation, a disaster. I don't think it's a great idea to wait that long. A lot of parents woke up the next morning and had no idea because people are already in bed at 11 p.m. So I think the overly concerned about what are we going to do with these working families with their kids, it really left them stranded to wait until 11 p.m. the night before to close the schools. And again, Pacifica was the very last school in the Bay Area to close their school. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I have 2 for you, Amy.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know.
Oh, okay. This one's for the budget. We don't have anything on the agenda with the budget, do we?
We do, I mean,
I just have a concern.
Do you want to go
Yeah,
ahead
I
and
can.
talk?
I didn't know if I
So
should break them up or not. so.
This one's on the budget.
Yeah, so, again, with, Governor Newsom, that was one of his campaigns, get the money back in the schools. And so this summer, when we got the list of school supplies that needed to be donated, just the immediate needs for school supplies, and I'm talking pencils, crayons, markers, erasers, it was $125 per family. So I'm just wondering, is it necessary to always rely on, I know I'm okay with the schools leaning on us parents, I'm happy to do it, but is there more money that can be put into the schools so there's not a strain on the teachers as well? I know the teachers have to supply a lot of the supplies themselves and it comes out of their own pocket, and now police officers, firefighters, and teachers, they do not get those deductions anymore on their taxes. I know my husband's a teacher, I'm a firefighter. You used to be able to write that off on your taxes. Now that's gone away with the new administration in our government. So I'm just wondering, is there any grant writing do we have the money? That's something that I think really needs to be addressed. Some families can't afford the $125, and so we'll pick up the slack there, but where's the money? And if there's money available for our schools for, besides just infrastructure and salaries, for the classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, correspondence.
Oh, I have a pile of correspondence, actually. So one was from the County Office of Education, and it was their board in support of San Mateo County immigrant communities, and they wanted to make sure that we highlighted that here at our board meeting. Do they have copies of this, Suzanne? They do not.
No,
Correct.
no.
Okay. And then another one, as elected officials, perhaps you're interested in this, is that we received, San Mateo County has having a demonstration of voting systems as they prepare for the November 5th election. We don't currently have an election, but just as elected officials, I thought you'd be interested in that. And then one more is the Fix-It Clinic is coming to the Pacifica Library. And so just as there is a big makerspace movement, one thing, especially in Pacifica, that we should be aware of is how to fix things as opposed to if something breaks, throwing it out and going to buy the new one. And so the Fix-It Clinic is coming to the library. I'll get you the date. These don't have dates on them. But they would also like to work with our schools in terms of being a piece of the makerspace. It's not always about making, sometimes it's about fixing. So those are the three items that I have.
Anybody else want to go? Kai, do you want to start?
You want me to start? I can start.
Okay.
Well, just the first week of school, so we had band camp. I helped with the IBL and Ocean Shore band camp. It was 3 days the week before school started, and a lot of the new sixth graders coming in and meeting the band director and actually seeing some of the instruments for the very first time and trying to make a noise on each of them to see what they would maybe want to choose. And you hope they all don't all choose the same one because it's going to be a balanced band, but it was fun to see them in there and to know that by the December concert and the spring concert, they'll actually be playing songs, because you probably wouldn't believe that if you saw it the first day. And then all the staff had the Big Five talk at IBL, and went over all the emergency procedures. And I know I've talked to some of the teachers, and they've already gone over those procedures with their students, even the little ones, in age-appropriate ways, and how to evacuate and what to do. So that was, I think it was a real successful day. I thought it was a very well-received workshop, or PD day.
Kathy?
I attended the new teacher orientation on August 16th in the afternoon and got to chat with a lot of new faces, and that was really nice. I don't know if any of you listened, Lozana Smith sent us a podcast on the affordable housing crisis, and it was about 45 minutes, so it wasn't really long. And it mostly dealt actually with housing from more with the city focus, but they did have some things that also were applicable to our workforce housing. A few pieces that I thought were interesting, they were saying that the definition of affordable housing has changed, which I think most of us know, in that now they're more focused on the day-to-day people who are not able to afford to purchase anything. And currently 3 counties in the Bay Area, a 1-bedroom apartment, they're estimating you'd have to have about $120,000 salary or higher to afford that. And then they did discuss a little bit about philosophically, are some cities going to have to start looking at, are we just full and we just can't build more housing? That was completely in opposition to what Governor Newsom is discussing about making it an easier, more streamlined, the whole SB 50 issue, streamlining the funding and the housing process. And one thing they're seeing is that cities like Huntington Beach right now are claiming that they have a charter city status, and so they don't have to comply with these mandates. And so now they're thinking that if that goes through in favor of Huntington Beach, that we're going to be seeing cities all up and down the state claiming that same status. They're also seeing increasing lawsuits regarding the developer fees from the developers who are now fighting it. So I think it's good that we have taken a jump and we have very reputable people that we are now working with for our workforce housing. And lastly, the part that was interesting to me, talking about the situation with the cities, is they're saying there's a concern for schools with this streamlining process that Governor Newsom is suggesting, because while that could make it easier for more building to go in, housing to go in, is that going to impact schools because there's going to be a push for putting housing in without the school focus? So they're seeing more of that housing going in, like in transit areas like BART and things, and that's not necessarily an area where you could put a school in. So while they build that housing and we could possibly have more students, how are those students going to get to school? Are they also going to be including more infrastructure? And then it said, of course, it could positively affect the workforce housing for the schools, because for other school districts down the line, that they won't have to jump through the hoops that we have. So so if you haven't listened to the podcast, it's kind of a good sort of overall viewpoint on the whole state housing crisis and legally what they're looking at. So
Can you repeat that, the podcast?
it's through Lizana Smith, who is our legal firm.
So it's a public podcast?
Mhm. Yeah.
Lizana Smith?
Yes.
So it's interesting because I think there was just an article in the Chronicle talking about China Basin and how they've put in that whole neighborhood there, and they didn't plan for a school there at all. So
Right.
case in point. The other thing that I heard maybe a week ago, which is really funny because we've been at this staff housing thing for a while, but of all places, Palo Alto was on NPR talking about their need for staff housing, along with San Francisco, and we all knew about that. But I guess it's once Palo Alto needs
Maybe
staff,
they'll pay attention now.
maybe there's a problem, right? If
Yeah.
So I have just been working. I do not have anything to report other than I was at the first day of school drop off with the kids, lining my two up in different lines all over the place, and I saw Superintendent Polson there.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I kind of have to go back. But over the summer, I met with Joan Weideman, and we had a discussion about equity in the schools and discipline in the schools. Focusing kind of, if you don't know Joan Weideman, she's an ex-board member, kind of looking at how discipline was done back then and how discipline is going now, and kind of doing a comparison and seeing what would fit in our district. I met with Kai to welcome her to the board. I also went to the new teachers orientation, and we did a fun activity where we got to talk about a teacher who made an impact on us, any teacher, anytime. So that was fun. I had my bi-weekly meeting with the superintendent, and for communications, I did receive a lot of communications over the summer, and so I just wanted to share. The first one is from Sean King about ticks, and then also Chris Baldwin about ticks, and we have addressed that. But I'm going to leave them over in the corner if you'd like to read them. The other one is I received an email from the LSEA president, and just kind of summarizing what she was asking is if the board can meet with LSEA 3 to 4 times a year. It didn't really go into any other much detail, but I did respond to her, and I'll leave these over there as well. And I also received an invitation to Palmapalooza, is that how you say it? And that's through the Pacifica Resource Center, and if you know the Pacifica Resource Center, they help kids with school supplies, backpacks. I used to work there, and we put together a whole backpack, and the director was very intent on giving everybody everything they needed plus more. So if anybody ever needed school supplies, the Pacifica Resource Center is right there. So they're having a fundraiser, so that they can help the community. So that's it for my communications.
So I have one thing. I've been thinking about our open positions, and I was wondering, is it possible to recruit a group of newly graduating students together? Because part of the issue is the housing is so expensive here. So if you're recruiting groups of teachers instead of just individuals, because I have some ideas of where to do that.
Is perfect. So it's important that we just follow the agenda, and we could possibly put that on for a future agenda item at the end.
So it's just something I've been thinking about, because it's a real, we have to get more teachers.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you could keep notes, because at the end it says future agenda items, and we could talk about it then.
I also have a little bit of a mess up on the agenda in that when we approve the consent agenda, that's approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and you wanted to delay the
5G
that item.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to discuss it, and then at that point we can decide whether to delay it or bring it on.
Okay.
So where have I been? I have been at the beginning of school, the first day of school. I was at Cabrillo, and it was really fun to see the excitement that was there. Very smooth. They the day before school wanted to redo their line, so that was a little bit chaotic, but the rest of it, as soon as kids got in class, was very orderly and fun, and real level of excitement. So after the kids go in the school and the parents congregate, that was a lot of happy faces there. And it was really nice to meet the new families as well. And it seemed like there were a lot of new folks from outside of the area that had just moved into Pacifica, so that was a lot of fun. Yesterday I made it up to Sunset Ridge and was there for about an hour, and so those are the only 2 schools I've been. I've spent a fair amount of time at Ortega, but outside in Ortega. I've been in the classrooms just a very little bit. Yesterday we had a really nice walk around Ortega Field with the 2 people from Vector Control, Angie Nakano and Megan Seabay, who are TIC experts, and then we had a concerned community member, and Tim Berry, who is the president of the National League, the Little League National League, and it was great to walk around and look at some areas where we could clean up some long grass. We were complimented on our dry field conditions, as those keep ticks from being there. And so I will report out to you the findings of the entire report, but none of our 6 sites, and we also tested LMEC, none of our 6 sites had ticks on the athletic fields or the playgrounds. There were 2 of the schools, Ocean Shore and IBL, had nothing. I think the coastal conditions and their location probably prevented that. And then the other schools had ticks that were adjacent, so not on the field, but maybe in the wooded areas next door. So we'll be talking about some prevention methods that we can use with that. And then the other huge piece to that is just making sure it's parent education. Really, in Pacifica, you have to always check for ticks. We can't avoid that. But that, we really are very thankful for the support of the Vector Control, and we will work with schools and PTOs to get that information out so that it just becomes a part of what we do. Let's see, what else? We do have back to school nights tomorrow. There are 5 of them. I will be at Cabrillo and Ocean Shore. And we have worked with recognizing in the conflicts that if a parent does have a conflict, we want them to reach out to their teacher, because where we saw the conflicts of people being in multiple schools was around special day classes or the TKs, and those teachers have agreed to have a meeting in the morning or to really connect to the people who aren't there, recognizing that, just kind of making themselves known to the teacher if they have a need on that end. But the Terra Nova back to school night I just found out about this week, so that just adds one more element to that layer. So we will do a better job next year of spacing them out across the week. I believe that is it. We had a really nice back to school event with the Big Five. Molly Hendricks did a fantastic job. It was really nice to have the recognition of the employees, and then if we talk about the new teacher orientation, there were a couple of elements to that were really amazing. So we did the opening event where everyone talked about a teacher who made an impact, and both positive and negative. People brought up both kinds of examples. And by the time that we got all the way around with 45 minutes, it was almost exactly what you would want to come out of a new teacher orientation. All the things that are important to know about relationships, about, not embarrassing people, making those connections with the families from the front end. And they said it came out of their mouth, and it was really nice to hear. And then we finished at the Pacifica Historical Society with one of a former teacher guest playing the role of Gaspar Portola, and just kind of introducing them to Pacifica as a community and all that the community has to offer. So it's been a fun week. I can't believe it's only been a week.
Okay, so moving on. District business. District goals. District values the goals provided in our Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and Strategic Plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more of the goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details of each of those district goals can be assessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information Board of Trustees. 5A, Network Infrastructure Equipment Upgrades and Licenses. LCAP Goal Number 1. Will.
So we have, what I put in front of you is a recommendation for, that the Pacifica School District the trustees approve the quote for the AMS net for a 1-year Meraki license for access points and switches. And so, just a little bit of background information. I have Nelson here too, who's very well adept at speaking to this also. But we are right now currently on a grace period for our licensing with Meraki. It goes through September 7th. This particular recommendation is for a 1-year recommendation. We're hoping once the E-rate Category 2 funding comes into place, we'll be able to credit that towards a 5-year licensing agreement, along with new Ethernet switches, wireless access points, and other optic media connectors. So that's what we put in front of you. Any questions?
I guess my only question is, there are a whole bunch of licenses, but this is for the hardware as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so it's all warranted, so we're not responsible for fixing anything that goes down. They come out and fix it for us or not?
Yeah, all these access points that you see in every single classroom, and there is a warranty. When we get the E-rate Category 2 funding, we're going to replace all of these with the newer standards. These are AC Wi-Fi standards that are going to be replaced with the AX, which will handle a lot more devices per location.
Understood.
And also, when we did buy these 5 years ago, we only equipped every other physical classrooms going through K through 4 because we didn't have devices at those levels at the time. So these will backfill all those locations.
But I mean, these guys right now, we're on a grace period, we're still leasing, well,
We're on the grace period for the
For the
license.
licensing.
oh, just for the license,
Right.
not for the hard, okay.
We
So-
own it outright.
Yeah, okay.
The licenses, these are cloud controlled, so without a license, they cease working.
Gotcha. I was just worried about the hardware itself and how, I mean, is it up to you to go to these if one goes out to troubleshoot
Yeah, they're
and fix it?
warranted. We've had to troubleshoot and send some back before, and they have no problem
Okay.
sending out a replacement. They're actually pretty quick about that.
Okay, but it's you that has to go and do that
Yes.
footwork, right?
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. And it's gonna be the same thing in our new lease, right?
Yes.
We purchase it, then it's ours, and something goes wrong. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? So it is recommended that the Pacifica School District Board of Education trustees approve a contract with AMS.net for 1 year. Meraki? Maraca. License for access points and switches. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
A second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. 5B, replacement of technology equipment. And this is LCAP goal number 1. Will?
So this is another thing is being brought before you for approval for the purchase of 1,000 Chromebooks and with Chromebook Management Console licenses. The amount of this contract is $342,096. So it's a large purchase. This will eventually be we've gotten this particular pricing through a what's called a piggyback contract through CalSave Technology, which is noted in the memo there, the contract number that it's memoed at. So we're getting that discounted pricing based off this, and this is our first step and hopefully many steps of that or catching up, because we had a moratorium on devices or on student Chromebooks for the last,
2 years.
2 years? 2 years. And many of these particular 1,000 are replacing Chromebooks that are not being supported anymore. They're what do they call it?
Obsolete.
Obsolete. They'll become obsolete in late October. So this is why we're bringing it in front of you now.
Does anybody have any questions? No?
They're
Jesse?
obsolete because they're just no longer being supported.
By the manufacturer,
By the
yes.
manufacturer, okay.
Yes. If you think about it like printer drivers and operating systems, they try to make it as future ready as possible to accommodate like new releases of operating systems. So it's the exact same thing. When they make a Chromebook, they have a finite period where updates are be able to be pushed out, and the updates are very important because it keeps the device secure against malicious malware and things like that.
So you always want to buy on the front end, so if something just came out, and these will expire in 2025.
Yes.
So it'll give us 5 years worth of use.
And these are good education-based devices. They fold up, they can be used as tablets, and they're they're water resistant. They're just a lot better than what we have
Use
now.
number 2 pencils on them,
Yes, you can use that.
which is pretty interesting. I've never seen that before.
That's very
So
interesting.
So you can use your finger, but it's more exact to use.
So what's going to happen to our fleet of outdated machines?
Those get recycled. We don't give them away or anything. We actually dispose of them in a
Buyback program.
through a buyback program. So this particular company will buy back and credit us this amount.
For not very much money.
Not very
Of
much
course.
money, but it's still, we can't. It's not something that we would give like to students because again, they'd be unsecured and they would be outside of the school district and out there. So we'd be a little bit liable for that.
There's no secondary use for them in the school system.
No.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Nelson. Also, with this contract, we are utilizing what's called a white glove service. And the reason why we're using white glove service is we just don't have the or the people power, I shouldn't say manpower, people power. We don't have the people power to actually get those devices out and working. So this contract covers that they literally deliver it to the school, they take it out of the boxes, make sure that they work for the systems, they load them in the carts, they do everything. They even dispose of the trash or the recycling.
It says recycles. So just in terms of the maintenance on these things, how does that work? Is this part of our deal, part of this $340,000?
Well, the maintenance component of that is the Google Apps for education management license, which allows us to push out apps and pretty much control the whole device.
Yeah, I'm worried more about the physical device. What if there's a malfunction of the physical device? If it's under warranty, we just send it back, obviously, but is that the way it works generally?
Yeah, we're going to exhaust the manufacturer's warranty first, and if any damage occurs outside of that period, then we look at it. We do have a vendor that fixes our Chromebooks now.
Okay.
711 Computer, and they do a really good job of fixing it.
In the long run, we'd like to work on training our students to do a portion of that. There's with some training, there's a lot that you can do with the Chromebook.
Okay. Well, how long is the warranty on these things anyway?
I don't have it in front of me, but it should say, on the specs. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a 1 year.
Is it one?
I think it's
Isn't it 1 year?
I think it's 14 months.
Okay.
I think that's what I read, 14 months.
Thanks so much.
I have a request. I wear hearing aids.
Oh, sorry.
And Kai and Will,
I'll talk toward you.
Thank you.
Quiet speakers.
Exactly.
Soft voices.
That'd be appreciated.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I'll speak up.
Thank you. So it is recommended that the Pacifica School District Board of Education trustees approve the purchase of 1,000 Chromebooks with Chrome Management Console licenses in the amount of $342,096.31. Do we have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve?
Second. And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 5C, resolution number 2019-08-28, a board compensation for missed meeting, goal, governance. Heather.
It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 2019-828A, board compensation for missed meetings as presented. That is covering the August 7th board meeting where Ms. Villalobos was not present.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
I will second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
5D, resolution number 2019-8-28B, Attendance Awareness Month. And this is LCAP goal number 3. Maria.
Yes, well, it's that time of year again. It's hard to believe it's already September again, but this is the month of the year, that we bring awareness to the importance of attending school regularly and how important that is to learning and how much the kids miss when they, in terms of their learning process, when they aren't in school. So we recommend that you support the idea by approving Board Trustees Resolution number 2019-08-28B, which is endorsing September as Attendance Awareness Month. I also took this opportunity to just introduce a little bit about an initiative that we're starting this year that I'll share more with you at a future meeting, called the Student Attendance Review Team, which is going to be a process that we put into place to be an intermediate review of student attendance prior to referring it to the county level, at SARB level, so that we can try and divert or provide some kind of added brain power to the site staff on what we can do to support a student better so that they can come to school more. So I'm very excited about that initiative, and I'll share more about it with you in the future.
All right. So this is an action item. Are there any questions first? No. And do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2019-08-28B, Attendance Awareness Month?
Oh, I will motion to approve that.
Second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
5E, resolution number 2019-08-28-C, authorizing election under Public Contract Code 22030 to become subject to uniform public construction cost accounting procedures, or CUPCCAA. And this is operations. Josie?
Thank you. So we kind of abbreviate that as CUPCA. So currently, our school district is under the public contract code for bidding for construction projects and also things like the purchase that Will just talked to you about. And our threshold for construction projects is $15,000. So as we gear up for the bond program, we wanted to look at alternate procurement methods. And CUPCA is an alternate procurement method that many school districts use. And what it does is it allows you to do more informal bidding up to a $200,000 threshold. And so if we adopt CUPCA, we would pre-qualify bidders. We would send out public notices to various bidders and pre-qualify them and maintain pre-qualified bidders in our office here so that when projects do come up, we can send the notice to those pre-qualified bidders and actually do an informal process like we do now for projects under $15,000. So the difference here is you wouldn't have to do a formal bidding process where you advertise in the newspaper for so many weeks and then you have a formal bid walk and then you take the bidders and you come in here, you open the bids and you take the lowest bidder. This other procurement method allows us more flexibility in being able to have those pre-qualified bidders and go to that bid list and do informal bids and write your bid specs in such a way you get the best quality work for your project. So it's another method that we'd like to start using this year as we look at bond projects. We'd like to at least have that option to start using this CUPCA bidding method.
Does anybody have any questions? I kind of have a question. I don't know if anybody else remembers, but there was a time when we were bidding and somebody was bidding for a job and we were going to do it a different way, but it turned out that was controversial and maybe not so legal because we're supposed to advertise.
Maybe it's the lease back, or were you
Yes.
thinking
Yeah,
of lease
exactly.
back?
That's
So
what
that
you're
was a
thinking
very
of.
controversial type of procurement that over the years districts have used and not used, and there was some lawsuits and
Right.
controversy. That's different than what we're.
Okay, so it's not along the same.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions?
And this is mostly for the upcoming, I'm assuming the housing.
Not at all for the housing. The housing is going under a different procurement method. It's a design build method, which we're going to bring back to the board in September for more discussion.
So what kind of contracts, public contracts, would this mostly be for?
So I'll give you an example. Just most recently this summer, we have what's called the mud pit at Sunset Ridge, and we just wanted to take a small section of mud and put AstroTurf. And so we got some informal bids, and it was over the $15,000 bid threshold. And given our tight timeline that we had this summer, we were not able to do that project. So under this procurement method, we would be able to do those informal bids, and as long as it was under $200,000, we would be able to award it to the contractors. So it would be a little bit, it would save us time on our timelines, give us more flexibility, and be able to utilize contractors that we feel are pre-qualified. Does that kind of make sense? It's just one project that we were not able to complete this summer because we were limited by a $15,000 bid threshold.
Got it.
So, so I understand that the threshold, you want to bump it up to $200,000, and this is sort of, we have this bond that was passed, so this is, in preparation for that, there's probably going to be quite a bit of work coming up here. I'm not sure if I read this correctly, but it sounded like if you have, say, 3 bids that come in, and all of them are over $200,000, that there is some way to accept the minimum bid on that. But maybe I read it too quickly or I read it wrong.
Yeah, the way I read it was once it's over the $200,000, you do the formal bidding.
Oh, is that
And
what
so
happens?
then
You
we
go to
would-
the formal, okay.
Yeah, we would go and advertise in the newspaper, write the bid specs very exact, put
Yeah.
our newspaper ads in, have a bid walk, and then open the bids here in public and take the lowest bidder.
Which very well could be above 200,000 depending
Yes.
on.
Yes.
what- Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for the clarification. It's very
It's very,
legalese, you
very
know.
complicated.
Does anybody else have questions? This is an action item. So it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 2019-08-28C, authorizing election under Public Contract Code Section 22030 to become subject to uniform public construction cost accounting procedures, and authorization for superintendent or designee to execute same. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 2019-08-28C, authorizing election? Yes.
I will motion to approve
And a
resolution.
second? And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, election of vice clerk. And this falls under governance. Heather?
Okay, California School Boards Association has they have a board of directors, and they have directors at large. And I believe, as I understand it, that every other year, there are certain directors that are elected. And so they are looking for nominations for directors at large, African American, American Indian.
No.
No, this is the vice clerk.
5G.
Is
Well,
that-
I'm at the wrong item, aren't I? I just skipped ahead.
So
It's a really long
election of
description.
vice clerk.
Perfect. Okay, so
I guess I can say no.
after we selected
Both elections.
Trustee Doggett for, as the trustee, we did have the election for the clerk, but we did not have the election, so we did not bump up and move for the election for the vice clerk. So we need to have an election for the vice clerk now.
All right, so I assume, are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Ms. Bernal as vice clerk.
Are there any other nominations?
You want me to nominate?
It's up to you guys. You have to nominate me.
All right. Okay.
It's always good to take it easy.
We need a motion to elect Elizabeth Berdal as vice clerk.
Oh, I will motion that.
And second,
I'll second.
and all those in favor?
Board-
I can't do that.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay,
Automatic
back to
habit.
my CSBA item.
Regularly scheduled program.
5G.
5G, skipping ahead. Anyway, they are seeking nominations, and we have until Saturday, October 5th to make that decision. So we have another meeting in September, so we're not necessarily in a rush. So you received the information in the board item. Are there any questions about this item?
I have questions. That's why I wanted to either table it until the next meeting, because I wanted to reach out and find out more information.
That's a great idea.
Your concern is what's involved?
Yes, and how much travel time.
Sure.
So I don't think we've ever tabled anything before, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
So-
we actually, in fact, we tabled the, tabled the other item too, so it just would be no action taken, and we'll bring it back when we talk about future items.
All right. Okay, moving on to 5H, Pacifica School District Board of Education Trustees, 2019 Committee and School Assignments. So this falls under governance. And Heather?
This is a perfect example of something that we tabled. We worked on it for a while, and then we felt like we were not
And
being
I thought I
committed.
was giving Kathy all the information so it would be easy.
Right.
Right, but then I didn't know how many, I was kind of like after a while thinking, well, Laverne,
Well,
good
Laverne will
luck.
do it. Laverne will do it.
You're on every
We came up a
committee.
lot. We kind of said we should have you in the room.
Yeah.
So let's just take a quick look at school assignments. And that really is the only one that really is 19 to 2019 to 2020. So is everyone okay with the assignments that we have as posted?
Yes, I do want to make a comment, though.
Okay.
Ocean Shore and Ortega are on the same night.
They all are.
And, yeah, they all are. And so, in the future, is there any way we can try to stagger them?
I think what I've heard
Yeah.
is that it's important to stagger
Yeah,
them.
'cause-
So we'll probably start with the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
do the first
The
half
teachers
hour
are
one and the second
absolutely
half hour
delighted
the
in
other
that
one.
they say this
You
is
just
the
don't have
perfect
parking.
night for it, but I think we'll do a rock, paper, scissors, or really talk about it worked out well with the K-5s and IBL, like that's, because IBL is going to be the following week, but it really is. The TK families are spread throughout, and so yes, they will be spread.
And also high school families as well.
Yes, exactly. That was the factor that we didn't know.
The only thing I'm concerned with is, I ran into this because I had 4 kids in elementary and then moving into middle school. And so literally there were not enough bodies for me and my husband to be in all of the classrooms. And it was kind of a bummer because some of the teachers would offer incentives for parents to show up. And so we wouldn't be able to take part of that. So I'm just hoping that none of our students and parents miss out on something just because they have another child or they're attending another open house.
Right. So just making sure that I understand that is that we don't offer incentives or consequences for a parent not attending, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it is.
I know my daughter would get class dollars.
Class dollars, yeah.
For back to school. If I came to back to school night, if I showed up, she earned class dollars.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something to consider.
Okay. I don't know that I can
Yeah.
ensure that that's not happening district-wide on Thursday, but we will. That's, when we talked about family engagement, a lot of those conversations came up, is that, it's not always, that's outside of a kid's control.
All right.
Oh, so then let's go on to this is the part that we felt like we needed you in the room, Laverne, because your name kept coming up a lot. And so we wanted to be honest about that. And so would you just take a look down the list and make sure that we are?
Yeah, I'm fine with everything. I was just concerned because I was on some of those, I just want to make sure, like the joint articulation, I've been on that for like 4 years, so I just thought it was time to move on.
And that was the one that we talked about, you really only need one person there, and so making sure that if the other one can't be there. The Library Advisory Council, I talked to Kevin Woodhouse about the Library Advisory Council, and he said they would really very much, if we had a trustee that could do it. Their issue is that they are the second Wednesday of the month, which does conflict with some of ours, but when I looked at their dates, there are 6 this year that they could attend, or that a trustee could attend. And I think there's going to be a lot going on with the libraries in the next year. He seemed to indicate that if we could have someone there, that would be great.
I don't mind.
Okay. I'll put the dates in your pocket, Kai.
Thank you.
We are all covered, I believe. Let's just take one last look. Anything else? We'll have, likely to have a workforce housing meeting this Wednesday coming up. And so the agenda goes out on Thursday, and we're going to discuss the contract for negotiations. Not all of the details that go along with that, but
That's
John,
at 3, correct?
3:30.
3:30.
3:30, and it'll be 3:30 to 4:30.
I couldn't tell by what went out whether it was the small committee or the larger community committee.
It is the larger community.
Okay. The wording, I wasn't sure.
Can I just have a question? Is the wellness committee going to pick up this year?
It is going to pick up this year. Yep. That was, Maria's going to lead that. And with the Special Ed Advisory Committee, the CPAC, they are participating in our family engagement. So, and so we would expect that we're going to use some of our family engagement strategies around getting a larger audience.
Nice.
Okay, so
Okay, so-
with that, we need to.
This is an action item, so do I have a motion to approve the Pacifica School District Board of Education Trustees 2019 Committee and school assignments as determined by discussion? Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
And we are moving on to number 6, board bylaws, board policies and administrative regulations. Goal is governance, and we have 6A, and this is Josie.
Thank you. This is an off-schedule CSBA manual maintenance. This came to us in December 2018, the manual maintenance series. And at that time, since we had not yet looked into the CUPCA alternative procurement method, we did not recommend moving forward with this board policy. So now we are recommending that the board adopt this board policy for the uniform public construction cost accounting procedures.
Do we have any questions or discussion on that?
My only question was, how are the amounts decided? You're going from 45 to 60. Were these suggested, or?
These were updates from CSBA
From
based on the
CSBA?
new law,
Okay.
because every year they change the bid thresholds, the amounts.
Gotcha. I just wondered where they came from, so
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, they were the ones
Thanks.
that made the change.
Anybody else? Okay, so let's see.
Items that would come back.
321. So we're on to 6B, charter school authorization, May 2019 manual maintenance, first reading. Heather?
I had that one, and we read it last time, and Trustee Levin asked a great question about shouldn't we be setting the standards for students that aren't performing? And we checked with our county council, and I said, I referred to it as a quick question, but she's very, very thoughtful about it, and really said from a strategy of it's better to ask the applicant to put that and the reasons why, and have to defend that, and so that otherwise we're setting standards, and then it may change, and then it may change, and then it may change. So what we would want is, if we had a charter school applicant, for them to set those standards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So unless there are questions or concerns, we'll bring that back for consent the next time.
Okay, so moving on to, sorry. The May 2019 Manual Maintenance 3000 series, Josie?
Thank you. This was also from the last board meeting. We talked about AR 3514, environmental safety, and there was one minor revision that was discussed at the last board meeting. It was changing the wording from vans to vehicles. And so that's on page 4. And so this is a second review for the first reading, and if there's no other changes, we would bring it back for second reading next time.
Are there any questions, comments? All right. Okay, moving on to 6D, May 2019 Manual Maintenance 4000, 5000 series, first reading, Maria?
Okay, well, we have a couple under these series that I'd like to just kind of summarize for you. The first one, Board Policy 4119 and 4219 and 4319 is really a kind of a it's an extension of what was a very brief policy to include the language that you see down below, which has to do with certain protections. And they're spelled out explicitly so that the policy adds those in specifically. Any questions about that? Okay. The next one, this one kind of took me a little bit of looking at before I realized what was happening. This one only existed as a policy in the past. The policy on bullying, you can see a lot of the language was stricken from that in the CSBA sample, and that's because a lot of it has to do more with process than it does with policy. So they extracted that and they created the administrative regulation that you see right behind it. So not a lot of this has changed from what was incorporated in the policy, but it has pulled out now into a regulation, which is kind of the steps that we need to go through in order to make sure that we're implementing the policy properly. It also includes cyberbullying, which wasn't there previously, and talks in detail about the type of training that we have to implement for staff and for students on our anti-bullying practices. Any questions about that one? And the next one has to do with it's BP 5132, and this is dressing and grooming, having to do with appropriate dress for staff. And it just spells out a little bit more again what is dressing in an appropriate manner in the district. Actually, I'm sorry, that one is about students. I think I bypassed one.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
Staff was 41.
Was it back in the
Yeah, it
Oh, that's
was
right.
4119.
Yeah.
Did I skip it?
It was the first one.
It was the first one.
It's a long day. Okay, so this is kind of the complementary policy having to do with students. And I understand that there's a question about this.
Well, so the question is really more for the board to have possibly a discussion. On the first page, under dress and grooming, it talks about the following guidelines shall apply to all regular school activities. And number 3 states hats, caps, and other head coverings shall not be worn indoors. And it was my experience as a parent in the district that this is not actually something that happens across the district, especially in middle school. What I found is that different teachers sort of maintained control over how this was going to be applied in their class. So one teacher might say, sure, you can keep your beanie on or your sweatshirt up, the hoodie up indoors, because you're having a middle school moment or whatever. And so my question then is, should this, how do we feel about this? Do we want to have this hats, caps, and everything should not be worn indoors, and this is really our policy? Do we want to allow it to be something that particular teachers, that's sort of their classroom thing, and they can have some control over? Do we want to change the wording? Do we want to strike it? I don't know how everybody's feeling.
I could have sworn that I read right after this. I was really concerned about that, particularly with respect to cultural or religious preferences.
Well, that's not what this is, though, because they do call that out.
No, I know they call that out, but they call it out, but they also call out afterwards that the latitude is up to the principal or his or her designee, is what it says right afterwards.
Not for the religion.
But that's for
religious.
The religious preferences trumps all of that, right?
Right,
It trumps everything.
right.
But then that was, I think the ordering of that religious came sort of at the
Yes,
end.
it actually caught me by surprise
So
too. I
that's-
was about to scribble it out.
I was about to do the exact same
And I
thing.
saw that it was explicit.
But somewhere in between those two pieces, I think, in between you cannot have a hat or cover your head, there was sort of the principal or designee can bend the rules. I don't know what the exact language is, right? And so, but it sort of goes back to, if everybody's going to kind of bend the rules, why have a rule
Why do
in
we
the
have
first
this policy?
place?
Exactly.
So I understand where you're coming from.
I'm just wondering, has anybody heard any feedback from teachers on why they would prefer they take off their hats or, put down their hoodies, because when I had boys in school, I didn't have that exact same thing, Kathy, but so-and-so lets me do it, but so-and-so won't. And so I'm just thinking, but it's just a hat. So I want to know, like, feedback from the teachers or the educators.
I'll speak from the old lady teacher perspective, and it I taught 20 years ago, so, and it was more or less a respect thing, like when you walk into a church, you take your hat off. But it was a discussion you had with students, and you talked about why it was important to you personally as a professional. I do think that times have changed, and there are reasons, like there is acknowledgement of the middle school moment, and there are all sorts of reasons why folks wouldn't be comfortable with the hat. And even in here it says that that there can be, they call them medical exceptions, but if your issue is anxiety and you feel better because there's a hat on your head. We did not check in with teachers or principals around this, and would be happy to see that. I don't think I think we would be wrong to say no hats ever, because we're promising ourselves it's not going to be enforced.
So I think you're right that times have changed, as far as.
I think.
I know that this doesn't happen here, but I think that some of the concern about hats sometimes could be that things can be hidden in the hat, and the only, can be brought, maybe things that isn't wanted at school could be there. Also, with kids with their hoods down over their faces, sometimes it's a way to disengage from what's going on in the classroom, or again, to hide maybe some physical or behavior, or some signs or symptoms of things that they may be either embarrassed about or want to hide from people around them. So I mean, there's that aspect to it too, but I think you're right. It is really hard, especially to tell a middle school student, that they can't express their personality or their style, their personal style by what they wear. Is that a battle you want to pick? I think those are the two things to weigh.
I think that if we're going to allow students to wear hats, which I don't have an issue with, it should fall under the first rule, that it has to be free of writing or pictures that are lewd, etc. So that would be my only concern. I have a middle schooler who wears a hoodie, and sometimes she likes to wear a hood.
Right. Kids. Sometimes that's all it is.
Sometimes that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not every day. I think we have to let kids be kids.
Can we ask the teachers?
Yeah.
Or can
We'd be
pass
happy
it
to,
by them?
actually. So, do you want us to talk to all teachers TK through 8, or should we focus on 4 through 8?
I think all of them, because.
Can you just do a survey?
Yeah,
Like a
absolutely.
survey monkey sort of
Is
thing?
it an issue in the classroom? Do they have problems with kids wearing hats? Does it distract from their teaching? Is there something happening that makes it a better rule?
Right. Perfect. I think that's a great way to go about it, because times have changed, and if we set a policy, we want most, there always has to be an exception. Like you think about in any given one of our schools, there's always going to be a reason for that. But I would appreciate the opportunity to send something out to the teachers, and I think they would too.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see their response.
I just want to call your attention to one more thing there on the policy side of that particular item on page 4. There's a paragraph under, I'm sorry. Yes, a paragraph under dressing and grooming that starts with, if a school's plan to require uniforms is adopted. That should have been stricken, because the entire rest of the item dealing with that particular topic was stricken, so I think it was a clerical oversight.
Are there any other questions, or do you have any other?
No.
So moving on, 6E, May 2019 Manual Maintenance 6000 Series, first reading, Will.
All right, so there's 2 items here. There's the board policy and AR for 6142, which has to do with sexual health and HIV/AIDS prevention instruction, and that particular policy is CSB sample as is, and It's actually a policy that just updates, that more directly reflects the goals of the California Healthy Youth Act and 3 new laws. I'm just going to summarize first, and you can ask questions after, but mostly it's about parent notification of human trafficking within the survey, and then also that there's a delivery of explicit instruction or explicit information about human trafficking within the presented health curriculum. So that's generally. Any questions?
I have a question about the human trafficking curriculum. Is that going to start this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I?
Sure.
So we utilize Health Connect, which is our curriculum for 5th and 7th, but also is for basically for 4th through 8th, and explicitly in the 7th grade curriculum, it calls out human trafficking. Now, that's constantly being updated, and it's not that we have trainings every single year that the teachers go to provide that, but we do send teacher representatives there. All teachers that are teaching the curriculum, all teachers get the Health Connect curriculum. For 5th grades, we have actually Health Connect personnel come out and actually teach there. For our 7th graders, they just get the updated curriculum, which will be inclusive of the human trafficking, and we also will have selected people get trained, so they'll come back and basically update the instruction and help support the teachers that are implementing.
And do they have do they have people who come out to talk to the class? I mean, it's just such a big topic right now, with living along Highway 101, which is a thoroughfare that goes, all the way up and all the way down. And so I was just wondering if we have presentations on that and what to look for.
There's no presentations directly from an outside source. I mean, the idea of the law is basically just to get the information out that this exists, to not avoid the conversation within that. So it's more of an informational thing, not only to the students but also to the parents. So it's more of that point of it. I would assume, and I guess I shouldn't assume, but I would think that as we move forward, there would be more explicit trainers coming out and explaining it. It's a fairly new law. It's started in January 2018 that this has been required to be put in there. And Health Connect, the ones we use, they're very aware of these new laws, and they're working directly with all the districts that they work with to make sure that it's implemented in the way the law asks for.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
On the board policy, on page 4, it talks about students who are excused from this curriculum. Students so excused by their parents and guardians shall be given an alternative educational activity. And I'm wondering how that is handled. Is that handled in a district-wide way, or is it per teacher, per classroom?
It's teacher discretion, right, to what that activity is. But it's within, when they're teaching this particular curriculum, it's within that health curriculum. So if these students are being excused from this portion of it, they can't be given that portion of
correct,
because they're getting the parent waiver. So they may get something else that's health related, health and safety related, or not, dependent on how because the job of the teacher is to make sure that they provide that entire health curriculum to those students, and if this portion is being taken out, then it may be just an extension of what they're already doing, or it may be just something totally different.
Or it could just be a math worksheet or
because they're
something.
not allowed to get this piece because of the parent exemption.
Okay, thank you.
And then the second one is around visual performing arts education, and this one is just basically just a an update of the policy so that it reflects more of the content standards, especially related to media arts. So if you notice that in there, they kept putting in media arts as part of the visual and performing arts education. And this was adopted by the state board in January 2019, so pretty recent also. And most of it is philosophical changes, lifelong goals, artistic processes around those areas. So it's pretty much straightforward. And again, this is a CSBA sample as is, so it's just an updating so that it's more connected with the content standards as they were adopted.
So I have one question maybe, or just a thought maybe to put out on this, since it is new. I'm just wondering, this says that you will be reporting out, and I'll be interested to see how you do that, considering we have a different art program almost at every school. You know, some pay through their PTO to have Sanchez. Some of them have the parents as the art teachers. I mean, we don't have a curriculum district-wide, so that's just, I'll be interested to see how you manage that.
In the policy, it talks about the effectiveness of the instruction, and I think one of the things we've been working with California Arts Now Alliance around developing a VAPA plan around the work that we're doing. So we're not trying to create something new. We recognize that a large part of our arts education comes in through volunteers, and then it's a little bit different. So one of the things we just try to do is record where things are happening and what is happening. And so where are students getting performing arts, what grade levels, what schools. So I think that's probably a little bit more what I'll be able to report is more of an inventory of art as opposed to the actual effectiveness of art.
Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps it will be Will that might be the designee.
Yeah, it might be a situation where it might be part of the ESS update. You know, that type of thing. And you know, we're helping to put a plan together, a VAPA plan together, kind of a long-term VAPA plan together. So I think it's kind of in motion.
We were selected by the county office and San Mateo Arts Now, I guess, or it's Pacifica Arts Now, specifically because we're considered a district that has more arts education than others do. And so really when you list it, it's a lot, it's not enough. Like art is a subject that needs to be taught in school by professional artists because if you think about one of the numbers that they use is that the number of jobs and the amount of income that's coming from the media arts in this area is just huge. And we don't always do everything just because there's a job related to it, but just, you know, because for some people, that's their reason for living. That's the reason they get up. And schools and school districts we have to help kids find that. And part of that is just exposure, and that's what we'll be able to report out on.
Well, it's actually very exciting too, because it's sort of lifting the importance, you know, of the arts and their tie-in with intellectual stimulation and, yeah.
Maybe we could even have like a presentation from a school or have some art, you know, displayed for a month or something from each school.
You know, I was thinking of that specific thing because we do go through SIPSs or school plans for student achievement, and I've noticed that even in my short time here, slowly that these VAPA pieces are surfacing in these SIPSs, and it started around climate, you know, around that climate goal, but now it's kind of slipping into more of the two academic areas about how those are being enriched by the arts.
Yes.
So I think that would be a great opportunity to, when we're going through that SIPSA process, that they speak to the VAPA portion of that.
Does anybody else have any other questions about those policies? Okay, so we're moving on to future agenda items. And I was wondering, can we pass those down to Maria maybe if anybody wants to read about the ticks from LSU?
So Heather, for future agenda items, Patrick Sayre from PSV, from Pacifica School Volunteers. I was talking to him today, and he would like to be able to do a presentation at some point. He said any time was fine. He'd just like a a little heads up, like a week or two to prepare. But he'd like to present that.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to kind of talk more about what we received from LSEA and possibly having a conversation meeting and inviting them so we can, I just don't want to leave it as it is right now, but address it because they want to meet with us, a little more. But, and it's a big but, there's concerns about the Brown Act and, how many board members, and we do have procedures, meetings where, we can meet. But the conversation meetings, as I understand it, is just the board, talking. But if we invite LSEA, would it be permittable for them to get along in the conversation as well?
I would have to look into that. I don't know that to be true.
And I also...
I think the conversation meeting is the conversation among the board.
Because, they're one of our partners and they're an important partner. So I think just addressing it no matter what the outcome is. Also, Jefferson High School District has on-site board meetings. So some of these things I think can be addressed, like if we had a board meeting at Ortega and, parents, maybe they'll come if the board meeting is at their school or, and not all the time, but just, periodically have the board meeting at, a different location so that maybe parent involvement would be a little more. Maybe we would hear more things. And I know this, this is where we are, but I'm open for anything.
Is that a topic that we should bring for a board agenda item so that there can be discussion on it?
The only thing that I would want to put in about this discussion about the LSCA conversation meeting is if we're going to start that, then we need to also remember to include CSEA.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so making sure that I get the topic. So one, I think perhaps addressing them separately would be board meetings in other locations. And then another one would be the conversation with LSEA. So that needs to be an item that you all discuss, right? Okay.
And in discussing possibly moving to other sites, it would be nice to have it at other sites when it's not, because we're discussing something that a big group of angry people are coming to. I mean, we do, go over to Valimar when we know that there's a big topic that a lot of folks are going to come and be unhappy. So, but the other piece too would be talking with Pacifica Television and see how that works for them. And yeah.
Okay. Other board items, Kat?
So about recruiting maybe groups of teachers, new graduates who are already friends, because I think you have the salary plus the cost of living here. And if we can find a way to maybe, I don't know if it's legal for us to do this, but find a way to recruit a group of teachers or small groups, like 2 to 4 at a time.
I think the only thing similar is that we do.
So when we
get
recruit
student
them,
teachers from.
Yeah, so when we recruit them, if they are coming from different areas, they can live together. So that cuts their cost of living down. And if they already know each other, they're from the same school, they're accredited, etc., it makes it a little bit more of an incentive to get them out here, especially if they're coming from somewhere outside of the Bay Area. You might have better luck recruiting outside of this area because everyone knows how much it costs to live here. But if we go outside of the area, maybe to a place that they never thought about moving to California and say, hey, 2 or 3 of you are teachers, you're new teachers, there's an opportunity that you all can come out, and then maybe we can also help find housing until the housing is built, where it's a house that they can rent together or something like that. So I was just thinking about it because we have to get some new teachers.
So I believe in our next agenda that we were going to report on the opening of school, and part of that included staffing, so we'll address that one in that topic. Obviously, we hire individually based on the individual piece, but, you know, that's a different issue. So we'll address that in that committee. Really hoping on the 18th, we have an opportunity, we'll at least give you a workforce housing update. It would be great if we were far enough along, but that may also end up on the October 10th. So we will find out a little bit more about that. But that's going to be a big, juicy item that we're going to want to clear some space in the agenda and put that right up front. So, any other items? Okay.
Oh, I just have one.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like urgent, but I just wanted to address the drug use in Pacifica again.
Okay.
You know, I'm just concerned. I just want to make sure that our 7th and 8th graders are going to be aware what is going on in high school. And I believe we updated our health to include the drugs and the marijuana and the drinking, but just to make sure that they're still getting that.
Okay. Perfect. And we have not forgotten your request, Trustee Levin, around digital access at home. So having that conversation around digital access. It's on the list.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So meeting's adjourned at 8:28.
Early.